a different landscape of what the Yokohama Museum usually looks like. Now it is this kind of sort of transformed, wavy, well, not so present and yet present at the same time. Complete transformation of the building. So this is the first piece that when we had spoken to Ivana, we had said, Ivana, is it possible to disappear the building? And this is a kind of disappearance. It no longer has that kind of concrete heaviness. It is transformed into this moire lightness, this dizziness, which is very difficult to see on the camera.
Oh,
doesn't matter, Monica. That's our mediation of the screen.
Tell us, Eriko, what it feels like.
Yeah, it feels like the wall is moving, and there's a blurring image coming out. But I think it's very difficult to show on the camera. There's a ticket booth behind this screen. So probably this part makes some dissolving image better than
So I think the work does manage to dissolve the building. It makes us feel, hello.
This is one of the Japanese artists, Yuki Iyama.
Yes.
She's now leaving.
Congratulations to you, Yuki.
And here's Kanako. Kanako-san, Shintaku-san.
Hello, Kanako.
Now we are closing. And Elena, now
hello,
we are
Elena.
on YouTube Live with Rax. Yeah.
I'll see you in the Ecosphere.
Yeah. She's moving to plot 48 to wait for us. So we will see her later as well. And Dennis.
Hello,
hey,
Dennis. He's running away.
And Aki, our project manager. And now we're entering into the Yokohama Museum of Art. And now you will first see the Nick Cave's Spinner's Forest. It totally changed the space into very shining, explosive images. It's sometimes cute, but oh, and Masaru is here.
Hello, Masaru.
And Yuichiro and Mika Kuraya, our museum director.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Where are the guns?
Guns. Here it is.
Yeah, I think it's important to speak of the fact that when one experiences this piece from a distance, it feels like this gleaming, twisting, colorful explosion. But when you walk inside, you realize that along with the charm and the beauty of the colorful sort of spinning pieces, what you also have are fragments such as tears and guns, which provide the kind of underlining backbone
Can
to
you see me? No.
And when we had begun to think about the exhibition, it had been this idea that how does this, because this is actually a huge, great gallery designed to look like a landscape. And it's to transform that, we wanted to invite Nick Cave Spinner Forest because it both is very present and yet allows for space and light to feel transformed.
Yes. And next to this Nick Cave's work, there's a large sculpture made from basically wood, but also some mixed materials. This is Aono Fumiaki's sculpture, transforming sculpture. For this one, the end of this work is made from the actual boat ship And finally, it transformed into table. He always used some materials, something discarded or found on the seashore, and he brought into his studio. And he says this is repairing, but it's not to repair, to make it as its original shape, but change it into something else.
Yeah, what is interesting, Eriko, about Arno's work is that he puts all of us in a shoreline, as if the whole world is in a shoreline and things are getting made by the waves that comes and takes away also. So it is not just everything is stable. So a table looks like a table, but becomes a boat, but becomes also a bed. You know? So between the bed, the table, the board, it moves. So that shoreline sense. So one of the things that we wanted was the building disappears, come and an explosion of affects, an explosion that is also has intimation of violence and reverie. And then we move to a shoreline where objects are being made as it is being unmade. So a table is not a table, it is grafting into becoming something else. So there is this sense of continuous shoreline becoming of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's also this, one of the sources, ideas for us was also this kind of, how do things learn to become something else or more than what they are? This kind of, and I think that this work is interesting also because it these are orphaned objects, and their new context of usage produces a kind of new language of care where they learn to be something more than useful into something which is much more profound than their functional utility in a way.
Okay, and now we came to upstairs, and there's another work by James Naismith. Yeah, self-taught engineer from 19th century.
Yeah, so this is, I hope Arushi from our Rux studio is there in the YouTube listening, because this is a book, you know, and we were working in the studio with this book. And if you see it, you see James Naismith actually, you will see there is this distinction between seeing something and then trying to imagine and record. This in late 19th century, when he's making 1870s, he's seeing the moon, but he has to, there is no recording, so he has to produce an imaginative. So he's seeing his hand, seeing if he's seeing objects, his design, and then he's actually seeing a wrinkle, and from that he's producing a surface of the moon. And what is incredible is that it is so close to the moon, and he's seeing an orange. He's seeing an orange. So one of the things that working in the studio, Arushi used to say that, look, in the orange, the hand, that becomes the moon surface. So this whole idea of the imagination is actually corporeal. It's the body, it's visceral. And you will see in this exhibition, tactile. In this exhibition, the attempt has always been to think through this tactility that artists are continuously exploring in their minds. The imagination, tactility of imagination.
And here is the title board, and we will go into Takashi Arai's space. And here's
Takashi.
Hello, Takashi. Takashi can take us through.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I did.
Please make a tour briefly about your project.
Show one definitely, one very carefully.
Okay, so he is a photographer who can shot the daguerreotype, one of the oldest technique of the photography since 19th century. And in this room, there is 1,000 pieces of the daguerreotypes he shot. Every knot of the 1,000 knots, which was the charm who made a wish to the soldier will come back in safe during the Second World War. And he's also showing his new video here about the relationship between women and women, grandmother and mother and daughter is in the video. And they are chatting each other and making the 1,000 knots. and also deconstructing the thousand knots at the end.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just want to say that for people who may not know this, that there were vests made for soldiers, for young men who were going to go into war, where women of the house, but not only, also members of the community of the neighborhood were invited to make knots on the vest. So these are all knots made with red thread. And the ideal vest that the soldier would wear inside his uniform would have 1,000 red knots made by everyone to safeguard his life during the war. So it really is kind of a blessing and a benediction, but it is also a way to sort of, I don't know, to sort of to touch to sort of acknowledge the violence that war makes on your lives and how to sort of negotiate that, how to deal with that. And that is why it's very important in the video that the same women make the knots, but also unmake the knots.
Also, this whole work has to be seen as an unmaking of this knot to actually implode the historical narrative that is locked in this, and to produce possibilities of a completely different historical entry point where the militarism is unpacked, is revealed in a different way. So if you, Eriko, can you show one knot in the wall? When we went to Takashi's studio, Takashi showed us knots like this, and these are 1,000 knots in, but if you see it carefully, each knot is different, as if we say we are knotted people, like we have knots in us, but we are all different people.
Yes.
And the knots are, the incredible is that this deconstruction that Takashi does is a incredible way in which a different idea of the world is opened up.
And here next to Takashi's work, there is another the artwork made from thread. And here is Kei Takemura in the dark.
Hello.
I think you should come lower.
Hi.
Yeah, she's using a fluorescent silk. I don't know how you can see. Can you see the shining thread? Yeah. She's making something discarded or broken object to repairing, but also make the scars more visible than before with this using this fluorescent silk. Also, there are some.
But this is also the scar that joins. It is the scar is luminous. It's the scar that joins. It's the luminous site. So it is not a wound it's not a wound that is going to produce resentment, but it is also this kind of luminous site to produce new thought, new way of seeing the object itself.
Yes.
As all daily life, no?
Yeah.
I thought, wasn't the thread, I believe, also bioluminescent, right? It's not just phosphorescent.
Yeah.
Yes, bioluminescent silk. And she will also make performance during the exhibition once in a while, and go inside the space and make the another stitches on the canvas. Layers of the stitches. She also made her first performance today for several hours.
Already.
Already she did. Thank you. And we're moving to the next gallery. Next is Lebohang Hangye from South Africa. This is her magnificent photography piece with her family photos, probably since 70s or late 60s. And she made it into like a stage set. And the light tower is here and rotating, the light is rotating and slowly lit up every images in the gallery.
What is nice in this work is that she, through the light, gentle movement of the light, stitches and creates new possibility of seeing new foreground backgrounds. New joints are produced just by the moving light. So this idea that, you know, photography, she has a very nice articulation that photography actually binds people through act of light. Different people are brought together in that act of light.
In the afterglow of every image.
No, the act of light itself brings together different worlds together and freezes it. So that act of light is what she's continuously choreographing in her work.
Yes, and here in back, there's another video piece by Levo Han entitled Kesaleten. I'm still here. I'm still there. Yeah. It's a lovely short animated video using the photos of her families.
I want to be there to see.
Okay, we go out from this dark gallery, and then next we will see the Robert Andrews piece.
Oh,
this is after amazing. 8 hours on first day.
You can say 8 hours of work. After 8 hours of work,
8 hours of work.
Looks like this.
Yes.
So how many hours of work is going to work?
Well, every 8 hours a day for 80 days.
So that's a lot of work.
I think it's I think it's interesting to think about what this work actually does is that it reveals a word over many days over the entire process of the exhibition. Robert Andrews selects a word, takes permission to use it from an indigenous Australian community that is part of his own history. And then, in a sense, he brings back the word into life. But through this process of scoring or creating a kind of trace on a wall, so the word itself becomes a moving performance. So language becomes real through this kind of machinic intervention. It's a very, very profound way of caring for words that are getting lost, actually.
But it is also the idea that there is a word hidden inside
and
every.
Next to Robert's work, there's a series of photography by Max de Esteban. And here's
we need to read this. Monica, can you read this? Yeah. And the preacher said,
you know, you always have the Lord by your side, and I was so pleased to be informed of this that I ran 20 red lights in his honor. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. The great Rolling Stones.
So, and then Max does an incredible, I think this is a very rare work coming from within the logic of finance, someone who has understood the financial markets from within and its opacity and its transparency simultaneously, and how it gambles the world. So you have this corridor, you have this beautiful series of reworking of the concepts by which financial markets produces the world and imagines and reimagines the world. But all this red, a kind of wrecking red ball that moves through it. So it's a kind of a cautionary ball, wrecking through the world, but also analytically, this work is analytically unpacking that world and letting you into something that is around us continuously, but of which we lose sight of, or in its opaqueness, we lose it.
Okay, then we will go into the next room. Here in this gallery, the entrance is covered with this half mirror sheet. And this is part of the Asako Iwama's beautiful video installation with her memory of his father.
You know, Eriko, this is Asako was the first artist we met when we started the work in Yokohama. She stays in Berlin. She came. She was in Yokohama. And she showed us all this diary of her father. This remarkable story of trying to make sense of the world. both inner world as well as he goes to Sri Lanka in late 60s and early 70s, and it's kind of diaries filled with stories of trying to think of food and hunger. And there is this,
and this
Asako,
bronze sculpture is also her work. It's casted from the Rio branch she found on the her father's garden.
Yeah. So it is.
But the way she's placed them and the way they're hanging, they also look like insects. Or creatures that are sort of hopping. So it sort of transforms this landscape of but there's a strange porosity that she has managed with it. What existential condition? Is it a metal? Is it insect? Is it inside? Is it outside? Is it personal? Is it public?
And next is Yuki Iyama. She's also working on the relationship between her younger sister who had a mental illness. And
here we would like to just, Eriko, draw this line that one of the things that this two artists posits for us is that the perimeter of the personal is a very wide space. Like Yuki had to go through, investigate the whole history of mental institutions in Japan to understand the sister. So it's a kind of, it's trying to understand a big, long history. And like Asako goes through a very big perimeter to understand and try to come to grips with understanding her father. So this idea of the perimeters that we are actually constructed by, and we have to move, keep on moving to make sense. The artist here does it brilliantly with great, I think, panache and poise. That is the word. They have panache.
And yet, I think it's also a very, the personal is talked about in a way that allows you to be with them in their journey of like figuring things out. So the personal is not kept secretive. It is a shared personal. I think this sort of, the liminal question becomes an open one between the self and non-self.
The personal and the depersonal.
And next, Tentative. This is also something related to the family history. It's about the fact he found that his grandfather was taking part of the spying during the war period in 1929. And he found that his grandfather was looking into the person who was working at the archaeological site in between Turkey and Syria.
Yeah. So this is also a huge landscape.
I mean, this is also a work that points to a part of the world that is right now in great turbulence and turmoil. This is exactly that northern Syria area where the archaeological excavations themselves become sort of turbulent political processes. And the way this artist weaves in a story of a personal family history, espionage, archaeology, speculation, the recasting of history as myth, and finding not just a different past, but also ways to a different future, reading through this intersection between world history and family processes.
Yes. And next to this work, there's Kenzel.
Twilight.
Beautiful installation.
It's like a series of walls and rooms with views looking in or out. Again, that sort of shifting of assumptions about borders, about whether you're inside or whether you're outside. And so you can't, you move and it sort of respatializes completely into, again, whether it's space within a domestic area or not, whether it's a room or just a wall.
It's also twilight. It's that idea of the light.
The light, the
twilight.
The lambent, the sort of,
Well, she's been exploring the idea of twilight for some time because dusk is a time of existential crisis almost in a way. And this is part of her long-term research and sort of experiential forays on how to express that, the dread almost that comes with twilight sometimes.
And also incredibly beautiful moment.
Yes. And outside of her Tenders installation, there is a large film projector. This is a 35mm film looping this large looper. This is Rosa Barba's work, Bending into Earth.
This is, we saw that archaeological dig, and so there is a kind of this is a kind of the impossibility of the archaeology of the future. Here, Rosa takes on an incredible toxic kind of sites and radioactive sites, and produces for us an incredibly poised image of that which cannot yield archaeological results. And if it yields, it will be threatening to us. And it's also a kind of a reading and a critical unpacking of the language by which modernity produces and talks about its own toxicity.
Can you just stand here for 1 minute, Eriko San? I just want to sort of this moment of everything.
This moment, yeah.
Which has been very important in the way we were sort of spatializing this room. A space which is full of light, which is luminous light in a way. It's not really about lighting up anything, but simply sort of seeing things from the glow of their own capacity, which is of course the artwork, but not only the artwork, the artist too.
Yeah. Okay. And then when we go out, we will see Kim Yun-cho's piece, Argos.
Which is basically kind of trapping cosmic rays. So now we are from the radioactive surface of inside the Earth, we are now into trapping cosmic rays. So this is physically trapping cosmic rays. Whatever is coming through in YMA Museum.
Mm-hmm. And after this work, we again comes to the central area and Nick Cave. The whole work of Nick Cave's here. And at that back, there's a wall for Masaru Iwai.
This is a project that is all around and is all around the city, many houses, many places. It is again Masaru.
Yeah.
Again Masaru. Sorry.
Well, the thing is that Masaru's piece, Broom Stars, it is actually a public participation piece. Anyone can sign up. He sends these masks, these paper bag masks that you can modify and transform and take pictures of yourself, join the project of becoming a broom star. What he's really interested in is cleaning as a kind of starting concept. Especially after Fukushima had taken place, Masaru-san had joined the teams that were going to work there as actual sort of working teams, and he had gone and participated in the cleaning up of Fukushima's roads and landscape. And when we were in conversation with him, we realized that it was, for him, this question of the artistic practice and the cleaning practice and living practice are all connected. As you can see, these are various images sent by different people from different situations. So what he has done is to sort of made us all reflect on the necessity of cleaning, of course, but also the transformative potential in that act. It is an act of care, a very sort of a gentle act that can be looked upon completely differently from what it can be passed over usually. Mm-hmm. And these texts that he has written are all drawn by pencil actually. These are all graphite pencils. This is not a printout. He's handwritten, hand-drawn everything. Sort of, again, these assumptions that one has that something is printed out, but actually, so it's again the kind of care that he has taken in the writing of these texts. It's again to provide that double take of shifting our gaze on we think of as and take for granted.
And I think it's important to stress that this is one of those instances where the exhibition sort of breaks the boundaries of its temporal logic. So Masaru is also producing an episodo, which is producing its own
the
sort of social.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's also a cumulative social space of annotation on cleaning.
Yes. And next is Teppei Kaneuchi. He makes transfiguration of the human figure and the figurines from the animations or mangas.
At some point, Eriko San, if you could also step back and show us the backdrop, the sort of explosion of the back, and these little figures. Each of these are sort of, again, transformed figures. This is part of his larger practice of taking something which looks very playful, doing what looks like a playful act on top of them, and yet creating creatures that are both old and new at the same time. And this wallpaper he has made completely new for a site-specific piece for the Triennale.
Yes.
I mean, in a way, to me, at least visually, sort of it connects to the explosion that is happening downstairs in a different way with Nick Cave's piece, which, as we all know, is topical and pertinent always, but in these days where the news is dealing with the implications of what the Black Lives Matter movement has highlighted again, it connects in another tone.
Yeah. And in the next room, again, there's Kim Yun-cho's large piece entitled Chroma.
Yeah. I think it's important here to talk a little bit about, again, the quality of illumination, of glow. One of the things that we've been thinking a lot about is bioluminescence, which is worked on by this Japanese biologist, Osamu Shimomura. And one of the things that Shimomura-san talks about is that luminescence is also a form of signaling. We also found that it could be a way of life in outer space. We may not always, if we encounter life, we may not
Shubha, got cut
organic
out.
process. Okay.
No. And on the different side of the wall, there's Elias Shume's work.
Just to finish what Shuddha was saying is that sometimes when you will see life, you will not know it is life, because the notion of organic life is what we understand, but life can come in other ways as well. So this piece, of course, is transmitting luminescent glowing, and the transmission is of the same order as another life form. As I don't know if it's possible for us to tell, for people to tell, but it's actually slowly moving and pulsating as well. And when you turn the vantage point from one angle, you see outside the door. On the other side, you will see this glowing wall. So we have worked with the exhibition architect, Momoko-san, to create 2 or 3 aspects in the exhibition. One is the wall that glows as well because of the nature of material that it has. And so it's a kind of transmission between the building and the creature, as it were, that is happening at the same time. And as you turn, as Eriko San just did, we can see the painting pieces of Elias Sime, which are actually using residue of computing technology, another kind of materiality which comes, of course, from a lot of the time the material is excavated in Africa, but crucially the joyful and the interest and the sort of fascinating aspect of this is that this landscape is made what looks like from afar, like the abstract painting, but also like architectural drawings, or also like drone photography, is actually made of the residue of technologies, of contemporary technologies that are so easily and so quickly becoming obsolescent. I mean, these are keyboard fragments. And these pieces are also over time. The first piece that we saw is the oldest piece, which is about 10 years old. And as you walk along, the pieces grow almost like creatures. And then the final piece is a vast array using wires.
You have to go close, yeah, Eriko-san. But you know, coming to think about it, the knots, we used to stay in the Navios hotel. There was 40 kinds of knots in that hotel. So I think the knots is something that that's Yokohama's contribution to our head, which keeps on appearing.
And in the center of this room, there's Zuza Gorinska's run-up is here.
Can
And
Neon run
now
up?
my
Neon?
colleagues,
Are all doing
running up.
run-ups. So this is this everybody know, you know, like this Yokohama Triennale was supposed to open along with the Olympics. Olympics got deferred, but we braved it. We are lucky we braved it. So this was the run up. So usually run up is to accelerate, to move into somewhere. But I think Zusa's run up is a much more complex field of a mental state that one has to engage in a run up. When it doesn't accelerate, it may deaccelerate. You may find it more pleasurable than the run up towards. So it does away with the towards and it does away with the gliding over. It's just a site of pleasure and also obstacle. And there, Nilva.
Yes. And next to Zusa, there's Nilva Gyures,
she's having
series
fun.
of the Women's Olympic Game.
Yes, people are waxing and beautifying and wearing all sorts of clothes and trying out all sorts of gestures. There is a balancing beam, but there's also a balancing part. These are really playful images.
And at the last of this room, there's Park Chang-kyung's video work entitled Belated Bosal. This is based on the naming of the Japanese nuclear plants. It's based on the name of the Buddhism.
This is a very important moment because you see, this is the film in the negative. You see negative. Eriko, can you just be a little still? Yes.
Yeah.
So you register the image. So from that luminous object knot, we come to a almost like the negative image that produces other image. And this is a parable. Starts with a parable, remains a parable. And there is a specific thing that why all nuclear related things are in the name of Buddha. When in India the nuclear blast was there, it was called Buddha Smiled. So he's looking and excavating this to provide a counter history to Buddha becoming nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Shubhra, you're not audible.
And here outside, there's Eva Fabregas is pumping. It's kind of a soft sculpture. People can even touch or sit down and relax. But it also looks like an organ inside of the human stomach.
It is our stomach actually. You know, and stomachs are called the second brain, the highest concentration of neurons after brain.
Yes.
Can you touch it for us? Can you sit on it?
Sure. 誰か座ってもらえますか?
This is one work that I get very angry with Corona.
Yes. Exactly. It's soft and bouncing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a visceral overflow, isn't it? Quite jarring too.
And in the next room, there's a ground galleries. And here we are showing Taos Mahacheva's work. It looks like a gymnastics, but something is strange than the regular ones.
kind of impossible gymnastics, isn't it?
Yes. And we will soon have a real performance with the athletes here on site. And we will show the video and put it here, which says coming soon. And here, she's also showing the video which she did last year in Venice and in Kiev.
You've forgotten about me.
So it's interesting that earlier she has worked with dancers and performers, but this time we're actually working with gymnasts,
Yes.
amateur gymnasts who have, and if you go online to episode X, you can see a beautiful little film made of them just exploring these structures.
Yes.
And you know what Taos manages is this, an expert gymnast actually exploring the structure. This, you know, like with practice, what happens, it becomes so embedded, she's able to dislodge those structures.
She works with the idea of the obstacle very nicely. That the awkwardness is exactly what is being sought, not necessarily the accomplished grace, but how the obstacle creates its own grammar of movement.
And here
And in
is the
next room,
hogweed.
yeah, Giant Hogweed by Ingela Illman.
Monica's field hogweed.
So the hogweed actually is a, you know, it's a plant that is now considered it came, shit, now I'm forgetting where it came from, but it's now
flooded England, UK at one time.
No, now recently
now
it's considered a takeover, a vicious thing that takes over. But it's also a really beautiful piece because when it originally came to Europe, it was looked at as a thing of beauty, and it was displayed as a thing of beauty. And then, of course, it became too comfortable and took over, and now no one likes it anymore. Which, of course, Ingela is playfully pointing out.
Good allegorical story of many things.
Yes.
Connected to many things in the world.
And inside this vitrine, Inti Guerrero curated the.
This we will just have to see. One of the things, this is an episode that YMA, like all museums, have an incredible collection which has grown over time. And we had seen Inti's work with collection in Philippines in once. So I think he's one of the most interesting curator who just displaces the collection and connect it with other histories. In this, he takes the collection's Pacific region area, picks up beautiful work with the contemporary and with Japanese modernism, and stitches a beautiful story of a colonial gaze being dismantled. So what you see is actually an act of dismantling a gaze rather than the gaze, by just stitching multiple histories and the contemporary self-consciousness about those histories.
So as you can see, this is a very special sort of spatial allocation. This is actually Eriko San, if you could step back one so we could see the entire thing, just to see the entire thing. This is actually a vitrine that is a part of this gallery, and it's always there. So when we were thinking of the episodes, which if you, the other episodes are all durational things. So they're all episodes in time. But Inti, we invited to make an episode in space. We asked him to just work with this vitrine space to make a kind of dilation of a different order. The ones that are happening in the duration of the triangle otherwise are sort of intensification of experience through time. But this one is doing that, but in spatial terms. And so he's pulled together material. This is Isa Jockson's work. She's an artist from the Philippines, but there's also, so he's brought together both material from the collection at the YMA, which we invited him for, and then he's sort of layered that, and he's literally working physically with the idea of layering as much because of the specific spatial form of the vitrine, layered that with work that he's invited from the region as well.
It starts with a cosmic Big Bang. By Christina Lucas.
And here the installation by Omer, Wasim, and Saira, Sheikh.
So Omer and Saira are, well, so when we first got to know Omer and Saira's work, we got to know them together, and we discovered only later that Saira has actually passed away. But what is really beautiful is the way Omer writes about their practice in the sense that it is a practice that began years ago, but now in a sense continues because of the way of approaching the making of art itself. So in this installation, much of the work is more recent work by Omer, but there is also an actual drawing by Saira on the right. And Omer and Saira were really interested in looking at contemporary, what constitutes the contemporary art practice within Pakistan and how to sort of interrupt certain assumptions of it, both from the gaze, and both of them were teaching at a arts university in Lahore, I believe. But it is also about queering the gaze in terms of how one looks at art from the country. But of course, the piece is much more than that. And next to that is, as you sort of turn in, is a piece by artist from Bangalore, who's based in Bangalore, Renuka Rajiv. They're interested in sort of using multiple forms. The diaristic form is the starting point, but not only, using multiple media. Really sort of the gaze which is looking just around the corner, but is able to discover the fact that all assumptions again about who constitutes what and how you are constituted are sort of opened out. And then as they wrote to me, at some point that the COVID experience, the intensification of time spent trapped in a room, as it were, or in a house, has led to an explosion of creatures. And these are all the latest, most recent COVID responses that they've made. COVID God is one of them somewhere. There it is.
Cheers, yes. And the end of this room, there's another gigantic paintings by Charin Shelpa, the deconstructed figures of the Buddhism god.
Well, the gods of compassion, but sort of repuzzled, as it were, asking us to look at the question of compassion anew.
Like a Latin Rubik's cube of compassion. You have to put it back again. I think it's interesting also that he takes the tropes of what would have been traditional Thangka painting and Mahayana imagery, and then asks us to reimagine things. I mean, in this, there is throughout our thinking, there has been this instance of thinking about the act that takes place within and between consciousnesses. And here, I think it's one of those instances where what is being invoked is not just what's happening in your consciousness, but what is happening between you, the artist, a memory of a certain image, and how you can reprocess it in the future.
Outside of this room, there's Parka Protex projection images.
This is a new piece by Pratik Sarkar. Usually he works in the still image, with the still image, which we will see another work of his in plot 48. In this one, Rashmi, or Ray of Light, this is a new piece with, well, moving images, as it were, from the still.
And then we go to the last gallery in this floor. And before entering next gallery, there's Sato Risa's organic figure. She's also showing her huge soft sculpture outside at plot 48 as well.
To me, it really feels like someone sitting and watching, or something, some presence, a presence ruminating on the piece below.
And it also looks like cocoon.
Yeah.
And in this gallery, there's Oscar Santian's spacecraft. This is the ceramic made from the soil with the same soil as the Venus.
Yeah.
He's also showing another piece at plot 48. And Sato Masaharu's paintings, a series of paintings. He recently passed away last year around April, and this series is his last paintings he finished a few months before he passed. The title of this series, Dr. Reaper. Jibish, you are muted.
Jibish, you're muted.
Okay. So Oscar का मेरे comment आए नहीं.
No. Jibish.
Go back. Why don't you say it again, Jibish?
No, I'm saying that we saw Sato's work, a video piece and we really liked his, and then we realized that he was not well, and he was working on this works.
And at last, in this gallery, there's Arya Khalid's video at the time of the ebb.
So we are back to the shoreline, and here the shoreline is now a space of magic, myth, thresholds of culture being formed, renewing itself, and it's a very poetic video. And this renewal, where the beast, the human, the shoreline join to renew and connect itself to each other. So the kind of this room which has Sato, the Oscar work from the future, from Venus, Sato's luminosity taking us to the threshold of luminosity as he's leaving this world physically, and to this shoreline, a threshold where beast and human dance together, anticipation of a new way of living, which is coming from a deep sensibility from within our ways of life already lived.
Here we U-turn, and then we will see two other small vitrines mounted on the wall. And inside that vitrine, there is two works by Taisir
Batnichi. So these are the sort of culmination pieces on this floor, on this floor, both very fragile, one a moment of frozen time, and the other a set of keys made of glass, which you will just see. Those are the keys to his house in a city he can no longer go back to, as it were, as he's originally from Palestine. And something just, I think for me, this piece really works at the level of purely the affect. I mean, I understand what it's doing, but just to see these keys in glass, something shifts within.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, he's obviously also riffing off the idea that when the Nakba happened and a lot of people from Palestine had to move, they thought that they will come back very soon. So they took their keys with them. So the keys remain as these kind of ghostly spectral reminders of the houses that you cannot return to. And this, every Palestinian family will have, and I think that this happens in many parts of the world where people are forced to move. So there is a kind of, let's say, this ghost or the specter of a house.
But to me, you know, it connects in a different way to Nick Cave's, like, you know, all the sort of lines of connection. It's also connecting to the piece that is right across from it. So these are all sort of experiential sightlines, as much as conceptual positions or framings.
And here's one object. This is an FM transmitter for DJ project.
The DJs are. This is by Merv, by DJ project. Is this DJ project is a big complex project that is happening here in this floor, where there are 6 soundtracks with many collaborators, and they appear and disappear. They graze the whole landscape and appear and disappear. And so that appearance is synchronized with docent movement. So suddenly that which is very invisible in the institutional space of the museum becomes the site of production of a new landscape of sound, and sound that is coming from radio, from the sky, as well as from the street of battles, as well as debates within ourselves. And now we land into.
Jibesh, you should say, what is DJ?
Oh, deliberation and discursive justice. Sorry. I've got used to saying DJ. There's a group, Cabello, Michel, and Lantian. They have been deliberating over a year through 3 episodes. One is in Hong Kong, Johannesburg, and this is the 3rd one where they have done the sound and something with uniforms.
And here there's a station for Lantian.
So this is. Lantian is from Dubai, and he grew up with a slogan from Nissan saying that we changed the desert. And he realized that Nissan is a local industry of Yokohama. So between the local industry of Yokohama and the desert of his childhood, he realized that there is something happening. So he went to Nissan factory and realized there's a complete, started researching the exoskeleton and realized that they are from actually invented from looking at rural life and going to shrines. And so as the end of the exhibition, now you basically are invited to wear it. You are invited to wear it and then again move in the exhibition.
The
exoskeleton who is going to make your life easier and take your weight down by 50 to 60%.
It's an industrial prosthesis. It is meant
to... No, it's not a prosthesis. It's the debate we are continuously.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant to mediate between the human working body and an automated process in an automobile factory. So I think that's something that we need to think about. That Yokohama is one of the sites where this gets invented.
Yeah, but what Lantian is doing is basically after the end of your round in the museum to work, he's inviting you to take another round and promising that it will be done with great ease and love. And you will feel much less burdened by it because it moves. It almost makes you glide and fly into the museum.
It takes certain time to wear this.
So we will do one video to all our listeners. We'll do one video of Lantian of this work where somebody traveling and walking and seeing the museum's work by wearing this.
Yeah, another walkthrough while wearing this.
Another walkthrough. Yes. Actually, Eriko, you should have been wearing it. It would have been much easier.
Yes. And this is a tablet to control the assist motion.
There's a long history of what is called ergonomics, regulated movement in industrial processes. And a car A car seat is also an ergonomic process, but the making of the car in the factory through the intervention of what would have been called ergonomics to increase productivity is another way of thinking about the boundary between care and its opposite in production of industrial time.
And this short video is also Lantian's piece.
This third-party claim appears vivid, offering guidance and advice. Monica Narula has written this phenomenon as a submitting implement of bicameral consciousness, disrupting the nervous system's ability to synthesize a coherent, unitary sense of self.
I heard something about Monica Narula's bicameral consciousness.
Yes. It mentioned about Monica. And the next step, there's Morishing Alayari's VR piece with the sculpture.
This is we end this thing with this many-headed goddesses.
Juj and Majuj.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a kind of a call to a different form, different energy back to life from its banishment. It's a kind of giving back a new imaginary to come up and ride and take us into a new conceptual cosmological space. This is a kind of an exit here to plot 48. The Yajuj, the Majuj is a call to a different idea of matter, a different idea of matter and how we imagine it and think with it. It is from Mauritian.
Yeah. And before going to plot 48, I would like to take you to our former restaurant. Yeah. And
also make or break.
And make or break.
Yes, make or break for that. Again, we're walking through the Nick Cave's work. And suddenly, Aono's sculpture appears. And there is the entrance to the room for make or break. They stayed in Yokohama just before the lockdown and in February. And they did a research about the bridges in Yokohama.
Of which there are many, many bridges.
They discovered a new Yokohama. They constructed a Yokohama
bridges
through its own bridges. And it's incredible how dense Yokohama is with bridges. And then you realize that a lot of it is created, has emerged and created. And also this whole care of the bridge, the kind of bridge is for them a site of meeting, encounter, division, and musicality. It's a kind of a site of musicality. And also caring is here. Also, caring is also dissolving, diluting, rusting, but also using it, and caring for it. So this doubleness of care is worked on. So basically you put seawater and rub it, and basically seawater and rub it, and it slowly
rusts
away. So in this 80 days, the caring of it should actually dissolve it. There are instructions for people to work on it, and also there are instructions for people to go into the city and work on the bridges.
Yeah.
And these are the instructions. Make it.
Yeah, people can take it and bring it back to their home and work on their own project.
So it's kind of a.
Yeah. So the museum is extended right into the city.
Mm-hmm.
Comes from the city, goes into the city.
KP さんには特に言ってない。言ってない。そしたら裏から行かざる。レストランの鍵って開いてるのかしら。レストラン鍵は開けてありますか？ いやいや、頼んでない。そしたら鍵を持ってこないといけない。とりあえず。Now the front door is closed, so I'm going from the back.
Yeah, it's quite late, isn't it?
Yeah.あ、開いてる。開けてある。あ、そうなんですね。
Now we're everyone seeing the inside of the museum that most people never get to see actually.
Yeah. ダメ。出ない。
Although this is the area where episode 5 by printing sound will happen. In that area,
no,
in a few months' time.
No.
No? Oh well.
No. Yeah.
The inside of the museum looks very similar to
It's
other
like
insides of the museum.
Yeah. Yes. I'm hiding my camera.
Maybe we should emerge to that later.
Here we are now in the restaurant, but it's very dark, and there's a video by Jianshu Zhang, the stop motion animation made by the creatures made from papers.
Yeah, so this is a stop motion animation, as Eriko San said, and this room actually, what used to be a restaurant, is now also the place where all the school children, when they come to see the exhibition, will have their lunch. So it's kind of also the lunch room, and we thought it was the perfect space to place the work of Jianshu Zhang because of its sort of utter childlike joyousness. He makes this personally himself, literally sits there and each frame, I've been to the studio, all of these things are actually made of paper and plastic. But when you watch the film, you're lost in this world of creatures who are having a musical dance.
So the idea is also that when you leave YMA, you are with bridges on the city and also hidden insects and animals inside yourselves.
And then back in the kitchen, yes. Yeah.
Living with
and
a
then
goddess.
back in the kitchen, there's the real puppets.
Yeah. Wearing an exoskeleton with a goddess, thinking of the bridges, with the beasts and new animals inside you. That's how you're going to plot 48.
Okay, then we will move to plot 48 from now.
So it's a 5-minute walk.
Yeah.
The kitchen, the kitchen is completely transformed.
Yes.
There's so many sculptures and plants. There we are.
We should do sometimes later kind of a picturization of this. So now plot 48, see, music, this for everyone now, since it's a gap, I think we can do a little chat. Uh, from the music, there is this three spaces actually. I think today we will not be able to go to Marian, to the Maritime Museum.
Yeah, we can
Marian
go to the
Fami.
Maritime Museum. Yes.
She will be unhappy, but we will do that surely again. But we now walk to the plot 48, which is a short distance. So and museum is 30 years old, 30, 32, and all, and has a certain architecture. You can see these tunnels. You know, it is made with a deep idea of history and futurity. So one reason we wanted to dissolve the museum, make it liquid, make it explode within, was this. You see this, the experiential feel of this museum, that you are in a space that has its own confidence. So now,
here's Kay again.
hello. Okay, thank you. Okay. And now we walk. This is the staff. This is the staff exit.
This is another exit at the back.
The staff exit.
Yeah.
And we walk from the side. We used to stand here a lot because this is where we would pack up and then go for a sake or a beer.
Yeah. And now it's evening and very cool outside.
It's cool. Oh.
Yeah. It's around 20 degrees in Yokohama.
So just to tell you all a little bit about plot 48, it's called plot 48 because that's the number of the plot. It wasn't always called plot 48 because until last year, it used to be known as the Ampaman house, which is basically, Ampaman is, like, I think it's we could translate it as the bread man, like a super figure, but for little kids, who's made of a slice of bread. I read it more like a moment of post-Second World War tutoring of little kids to appreciate food that they get. But anyway, Ampaman is a very, very popular figure. But now he has vacated this building and turned it and has its own museum. Of course, it's like a big phalanx of creatures. But this is the walk, and this behind this wonderful spectrum designed by Ariane Spanier, who has designed the visual look of the entire triennial, with whom we work also for Shanghai Biennial and Insert in Delhi before. Behind this is actually a new building coming up. Isn't it like I forgot, is it an apartment block or a hotel?
No, this is going to be a hotel. The new hotel will be open 2 years later.
Expanded Yokohama.
Also the umbrellas.
The whitey umbrellas. Anyway, I'm just going to say that when we get to the building, you'll see that it's a very special looking building because it was built around the same time as the museum, actually, in the mid 80s. But that time it was built by developers as a kind of show building. And because Yokohama is a port city, they decided to make it look a little bit like a boat or like a ship. It's very, very 80s aesthetic, very sort of glass and steel and kind of odd curves. So it was quite interesting to work. You know, the YMA is a museum where you can't bring anything living in, for example, because you cannot change the humidity levels, because after all, it has a very serious collection. A huge collection, actually. And plot 48 is the opposite, because it is a building that probably has no future at all in the form that it is. So we could do anything within that. So what you're also now moving from a place which comes from a certain kind of history into another one where the organic can live differently than it can in the YMA building. So it was actually very interesting to have these two very different places, very different spaces to work with while curating the exhibition.
But also the most important thing, this walk we must have made many times, and actually building come up very fast in Japan. So they go away fast and they come up very fast. So this place actually used to look very different. But a lot of buildings come up, and the building next to where we were was going at a rate of 1 floor per every 15 days.
Wow, what's that sound? So this is actually all of this land that we are walking on. What is that word? When you take it back from the sea, it's reclaimed land. It used to be sea over here many, many years ago. And as you all might know, Yokohama is a port city, but it's not a very old port city, but it is a pretty unique one because it is the first place that foreigners would get permission to enter from in the late 19th, early 20th century. And it has obviously grown a lot. It's basically, it's like not a, it's a companion city to Tokyo. You can take the metro into Ginza. So it's very close to the hubbub that Tokyo is, but it has its own rhythm. It has its own texture. A lot more younger people are shifting to Yokohama because of a different rhythm from the crazy obviousness of Tokyo, which is why, as Jibesh was saying, all of this landscape is transforming really fast, and a lot of buildings are coming up. There was actually another set of developer homes right behind YMA, which have also been broken down. And there's a building right next to Plot 48 that is growing at like 1 floor per 2 weeks, as he said. So this is basically the distance we are doing in real time from YMA to Plot 48. It is about a 5-7 minute walk, and especially if the weather is as nice, it feels really quite nice.
I might just want to add one thing, is that one of the sources we began working with as a set of ideas was the figure of a man called Kimitsu Nishikawa, who was from Yokohama. He was a dock worker, but he, on the days that he was not drinking in the bar, he was in the library educating himself about the world. And there is a sense in reading about his life where you can see that within the confines of the not a very large city of Yokohama, he found for himself the whole world and the whole cosmos. So this walk from the Yokohama Museum of Art to Plot 48 can also be seen as a kind of reclaiming of the universe, both within the exhibition, and as Jivesh said, you end the exhibition with these creatures who could be both inside you and outside you. And then when you go into Plot 48, you go into another zone of discovery, of playfulness, of life, of energy. So there is a way in which this itinerary of what is in the exhibition, what is outside it, what is the bridge from one to the other, is also a form of discovery of the self and the universe. In a sense, taking on the questions that Kimitsu Nishikawa asked throughout his life. I can't hear the sound of Eriko San.
Yeah, but I think that's because she's
muted.
Cut it because it's kind of noisy outside. And there has to be something said about this extremely cinematic experience of actual experience of time.
Yeah.
Durational piece indeed.
Yeah, it's a piece in making actually. But the interesting thing is that the walk is at this hour very, very fascinating, because you realize how illumination is so central in the experience of an urban life in Yokohama.
And I think Monica gestured to it already, that a lot of Yokohama is reclaimed from the sea. So this whole area in front of the YMA and in the walk is once was underwater, was submarine. And that is also an interesting way of thinking about the fluidity of space and how we encounter it.
And after episode of 00, when all the artists were together, we went, Ichiro said, I will take you to deep Yokohama. And then it took us to a labyrinth of Yokohama that was unimaginable.
Now
there
we arrived at Plot 48.
Yeah.
It's already nighttime, so it's a bit dark, but this is a structure made by farming architects. It's in daytime. It's very beautiful space to sit down and relax.
So when basically when you reach plot 48, its specificity, as you can see above the structure by farming architects, is there. But we first asked them. We asked farming architects to think of a place where people who have come walking from the museum might want to take a pause, a rest. So this is, and it's also to sort of shift the gaze from an expected relationship with architecture, which is the actual building, to something which is temporary, but creates a completely different zone of hospitality right at the beginning.
Yeah, but there are also fish here, plants here that are growing with you.
Yeah, so we can. This is one part of the structure, and now we're going to go inside. And
you're supposed to sit here. This is non-ticketed zone. Sit here, read, come anytime, and chill.
And we'll come to the rest of it when we come back later, as we exit.
Yeah, and here's the side of plot 48. And the gate.
And we should say that plot 48 is a name we have given. It is not called.
Yes.
It has no.
But now it's on the Google map as well. And here's Dennis San. Hi, hello.
Hi, Dennis.
It's online. Rux is here.
Oh, boy. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Dennis. Lovely to see you again. Oh, no, don't leave. Tell us about the work. Tell everyone else about the work.
Can hear me.
Yeah, yes. We can hear you.
It's really a melancholic moment for me.
Why?
You know, I was just really about to leave. I was just about to take off this artificial flower. I wish I can hear you. I can't hear you now. I'm sure you will.
Please show us your piece.
Yeah.
Can you ring?
So, you know, for the whole night, I was very sad because I'm sitting here alone by myself, waiting for someone to come about to ring the bell. But obviously, there's no one here to ring the bell.
Sometimes you have to ring your own bell.
I'm not religious, but you know, when you go to if you go to the Jinja, you go to the temple. You pull the string. I'm sure you know, right? You know the whole ritual. And you know that every time I've been here for fucking 3 years, 4 years now, never got the ritual right. You gotta free your hands, clap your hands 2 times, or you gotta clap your hands 1 time, you gotta bow 1 time, or whatever. But I think the evolution of the work. Okay, we're running out of time. Sorry, we're running out of time. Sorry for meandering. So
anyhow, the visitor can ring the bell.
I'm sorry.
And pay attention.
But I think, well, Dennis couldn't finish his thought, but I think he's sort of riffing off the question of gesture at the temple, but also he's continuing this piece as a performance that he does, and he will continue to do as a kind of open-ended tale of the triennial as long as he wants to, in the streets of where he lives in Tokyo or wherever else, where the bicycle bell is never rung by bicyclists because it's considered rude. So the bell has both this presence as a kind of temple creature, as a temple bell that is rung in temples, and as a bicycle bell that is never rung on the streets. So he walks on the streets with the bicycle bell ringing and creating an unexpected disturbance in the normalcy of the streets.
In the protocols of the streets.
Yes, he shifts the protocols completely. And it's the same thing over here. You think you're ringing a bell that reminds you of temple bells, but you will be ringing a bicycle bell.
So one reason this work is called an episode is that it will continue as a reminder of this disruption and as a disruption itself. So
because
it continues like that.
Between
it continues
this
for next 3 years.
So until the next edition of the time.
Well, and maybe longer, who knows?
Maybe longer, who knows?
Maybe into eternity.
And there is a video of him walking in the street and ringing the bell in the website. Episode X. There is a very
online.
And here up on the terrace, there's another piece of the Risa Sato's.
Another creature watching.
Yeah, creatures. And people will first go into the another building from this entrance. And again, we will see the title. And here, Yoi Kawakubo and his father's painting are here.
This is again one of those. This building and this space, we are into an very artistic exploration of cosmologies and histories and materials and lives constructed and continuously being unraveled and investigated. So this is an octopus intelligence, and his father is basically making El Greco's paintings, but he's there in one of the paintings. And so Toei is talking through his father, talking about octopus intelligence and creating an understanding and
of
making
history
sense
and the world
of financial markets, history of Olympic Games, history of making of cities,
of the urge to compete in a way.
Urban life.
And so it's about the present as sort of networked intelligence, in which the past and the future are imbricated.
Enmeshed. And
I mean, his father's actually an amazing copier, and he shifted to live in Spain because he was so moved by El Greco's paintings, and he spent a lot of time, you can say copying, or you can say just immersed in the work of El Greco, and these all paintings made by his father. Reincarnating El Greco, that's wonderful.
But Frank, this film I am yet to fully see because it's just got finished.
And next to Yoi, there's Isham Berada's sculpture and the video installation.
Hisham is really interested in how life is formed. So when we did episode 00, we actually invited him to do a performance where it looks like creatures are growing in the water, which he actually makes right in front of you using chemicals. And so it's like watching a forest of life grow up right in front of your eyes. And here too, he's extending the notion of what constitutes life. So the first piece that you see in the foreground, this water tank, these are sculptures that will also grow over the time of the triennial. So over the next 3 months, the relationship between chemicals and electricity and the quality of the water will create a growing. So in a way, like people say, I mean, science can say that crystals are a form of life because they keep growing. If life was to be looked at, what are the characteristics of life? Growth is one of them. And so this sculpture is in that sense alive. And so is these videos in this creature or this form in the video. So these are actually made using huge amounts of energy. As Hisham points out, the amount of energy it took to render these videos is the same as it takes a couple to live in a house in Europe for 2 months. So it is really about consumption of calorific, of energy to transform and make another, how life uses energy to sustain itself. In a similar way, these videos also processed, these are all artificially generated. These are also processed using energy to make another form of life.
And next to Isham is Amor Patel's work.
Amor, this is the four. You have to hold. Yeah, this is the 3 sounds from a mosquito in conversation with a machine. The machine is recorded by his father. Amol's it's this kind of a dialogue between streams of life and work and things that is produced and lived with intensely. This is Amol does is creates a crafts incredibly poetic landscape of upheaval. This is in upheaval. It is breathing to overturn the world. So the hand, here there is a series of sketches, sculptural sketches of hand and the dress and a shirt and a leg that has worked for ages, and eyes that are in a rebellious spirit of an watching and moving towards an upheaval, and it's a world, and there are hands.
Yeah, everything moves. I think this is the important part, is that so much of the work is kinetic. On the face of it, it looks like it's still and stable, but actually on on close attention, it's all moving. And it is this sort of unexpected nuance that you realize that there's always a churning underneath what one takes as still and stable.
And it's a meditation on all the senses: touch, sound, mediated through the experience of work, memories of labor, of
toxic work, working with toxicity, working with grave danger, grave prohibitions and danger. But it's a preparation for an upheaval. It's a registration and preparation of upheaval, and a conversation that is very specific. It is happening
right now.
Right now.
And from here, you can see, actually, just can you turn around a little before entering? Oh, well. Yeah, see these, no, just this on your left, just to say that from within, you can also look without and see structures of farming architects that you will finally see again as you walk out. But from here, you can see that, anyway, this is just about co-presence of the plants that you can see from inside looking outside of farming architects. Just a pause just when you were walking in, I just wanted to flag that. Now we're going to walk into the space here, which is the piece of Andreas Greiner. So it's actually a very interesting relationship with life all over again. Here is a self-playing piano that performs every few hours. And before it performs, if you look on the right, you will see that there's sort of seated viewers, which will grow over time, these bottles, which actually they have algae within them. And when these bottles are placed on the self-playing piano, they get at the sort of the susurration caused by the strings activates, the vibration activates the algae and they start to glow. So the machine and life speak to each other in a completely different way. So at this point of time, the algae are resting, and these bottles will keep growing because that's how algae grow. You decant half, and then it grows again, and so on and so on. Actually, this room will fill with their presence, and so the performances are timed for 3 times a day. But you can come and.
But the most important thing is here, the algae time is what you have to obey, not your time for the algae. So, like what is big important thing, people get very frustrated with art is art induces its own time. So,
and we are just testing how it looks.
So here we have to move with the algae time rather than human time being made to suit algae time.
And it's also a riffing off the idea of playing music for plants.
Can you see it? Can you see? Yeah, can you everybody see
It's hard, but there is
hard, but you can see it. No, everybody can see it. No,
it's very hard to see.
Yeah, you can see it.
Can you see? You can see the
glow. A little bit.
Green.
It's very subtle light. Very hard to catch by the camera.
So this room it's bioluminescence. It's a room of bioluminescence.
Okay, it is.
Yeah. You can see it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this is very much an experiential piece.
Yes. And then we're going upstairs.
Should we take the lift? Achha, we'll take the lift later.
But I want to share something.
Oish, what is this?
The piece by Ikawa San.
Yes,
The
there's a
security didn't
strange
call.
bag. Yeah, we have to call security. But it's very heavy and I cannot hold it. This is part of the object by Takehiro Ikawa.
So for people who are going by, this is a moment of mystery which will only be resolved possibly when you go and see when you go and experience Ikawa-san's work later in this complex of buildings in Plot 48. For now, this will remain a mysterious creature, well, mysterious object.
Yeah. Here upstairs, we have several small rooms for each artist. And at the very end of the room, there is 4-hour-long video by Renu Sapan with this luxurious chairs, seatings. It's many months in Myria.
So today, Eric, we were discussing how many hours will be needed to see this exhibition. So it is series of 4 hours. If you come 1 4 hour, you have to commit to this film. This is it's a kind of a video diary. It's not a film in that sense. It is contemporary art it can be a hospitable to new form of the video. And it's a tale almost of multiple protagonists making a space and being defined and being run over by a space and making and reconstituting and defining a space. So she's just why is there so much light here in this?
No, it's not the light because the video is now in the very dark
blanket.
Scene. So,
okay. So
the camera automatically adjusts the lighting.
So this is a 4 hour long. There will be 2 screening every day. And the sitting you are seeing is one of the big innovation of COVID is we have the best seating in exhibition in the world now. This is a business class lounge. Because what happened with COVID is that you have to sit with social distance. So every artist somewhere we have been able to find a very specific way of hosting the visitor to the viewer.
And next room is Farah Al-Qasimi's photographic installation. The many layers of the images on the wall or on the floor or even on the ceiling.
And Farah Al-Qasimi always works with a kind of magical element in the everyday, no? So she takes
the gin,
simple, the
gin,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, presences that are for instance, in all Islamic cultures, they're not ghosts, but they're invisible presences who can be possessed, who can possess you and who can move you, who can interact with you in ways that you are not expected to, and they will often be found in relation to very, very simple objects, like the lamp you rubbed is Aladdin, for instance, but everything else as well. And I think she's also interested in this idea between the shoreline and the sea, and
the stories
going
from
away,
the sea.
coming back, stories from the sea. That's
so the Pearl
and
Driver.
Lawai's piece. There is a voice missing. The shape of itself is taken from, looks like someone jumping. And yeah, probably the character from the animation. And 2 monitors mounted and playing the short films.
About touch, no? It's kind of the effervescence and the beauty of touch, but constructed
the hand and the mouth.
And then the mouth. And constructed through
reworking found fragments
material.
or found material, as in like grabbed from various sources. The hand and the mouth keep repositioned, keep looping,
Yeah.
enacting.
And the hand and the mouth in this particular point of time is a very interesting relationship. We all have to be careful about our hands going to our mouths.
And that's kind of.
In the back of its piece, there's another Sarka Protix 35mm projection, slide projection.
This is important, Monica.
Yeah, this is a series of photographs that Protik took while on the sets, actually, of a television series being made in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. And what's really interesting is that each of these has, like, you know, for South Asians, especially the sort of excessive dramaturgy of the aesthetic is something we know well from our own history of TV and cinema. But
what is this pen? Pen mat baja.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, it's looking at images of actions of violence. Both they seem both impossibly, you know, like jokes, and at the same time very, very real because of the histories that we know from this part of the world.
Elena is here?
Yes, here is Elena again. Oh, I want to drink. Hi, cheers.
Hello, Elena.
Everybody,
Ooh.
it's been a
Very
long
jealous.
day. Here, you missed
I
it.
want my highball. So Elena is working with 30 artists.
It's been this one's a long project for me, but I'm here so I can do that. But, yeah.
Can you make a brief introduction?
I did a
Probably
workshop
in 2 minutes.
last year, and we continued it this year, and we're making porn for shrimp. And the reason is a science experiment that isn't solved, where shrimp will not have sex. So how do you make them do that? Partly because it's in a closed system, closed ecosphere, closed ecology. What is sexy in a closed ecology? Using shrimp as I guess, the first responders. These shrimp refuse to reproduce, so we're trying to make them feel more sexy in this space, with as many people joining as possible. So, where would you like to go?
Probably in backside. She used many tiny rooms hidden at the back.
Like a labyrinth. It's just like an internet cafe for Japanese people. Ebi room. You can sit and watch stimulating and funny videos about
Pornhub
that may or may not stimulate you as a shrimp or a human. Made by all different artists in all different media. Behind you, you have a VR work where you can sit as a shrimp.
It's a VR goggle with shrimp head.
VR goggle with shrimp head. On future, Japan has this phrase, #no future, because no breeding. So we are trying to do on future. How do we explain this place? These are love hotels, which is a very Japanese concept, but they're for shrimp. They have all different,
it's like a cell,
all different water and different ingredients in, so you can choose which hotel room you like to be sexy in. I mean, there are 50 works in here.
Yeah.
behind this curtain here, we have a crazy person performing who then strips out naked and does a little dance, but he's not doing it right now. We have a poet performing in a fridge. Collection by a
Hawaiian collector.
crazy Japanese artist. Yeah.
That video was that Persian love poem for shrimps, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And let's go
Japanese
inside
rope bonding.
another room, the sixth cave.
Come on, Eriko. Oh. Little club.
Wow. It's like a nightclub.
So this is it. Ebi porno. Ebi is shrimp. Shrimp porn. There's a shrimp burger.
Shrimp bed.
Shrimp bed, like futon. Okay, this is like we came in on the loop. We have a magazine that you can.
It's a pornographic magazine, but all with shrimps.
All just is this have a rating? This Zoom tour? For instance, hey, there might be only the second boobs user on the tour.
There's many VR sets
Yeah,
here.
2 VR sets, performances. Maybe you haven't seen this yet. School uniforms for shrimp.
School uniform for
Every
shrimp.
school.
Every school.
Yeah. that little section is every school. It's shrimp school. This is a diary of someone who tried to keep a shrimp and they died horribly. It's like a very sad funeral story.
And this is a veil tone.
Yeah.
Only how many artists are now in it?
How many artists in this space?
I keep losing track, and we gained another one yesterday. So
Wow.
I think we have
New member added yesterday.
36.
36.
We're a
How
little
do
bit
they get
tired.
added?
I put on
How
a
do they
shrimp
get added?
festival within the festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's planning to do them.
And we're gonna do a
Festival,
live one, yeah.
Live one.
Hopefully. He made himself.
Yeah, he made a performance on site here.
This guy covered himself in red paint and threw himself at the wall because it's an ancient Japanese technique of measuring a fish, measuring the size of your fish. So he decided he is a shrimp. That's me DJing for him in the back. And this is his gyotaku, which is the Japanese fish print on the wall.
Yeah, and we can see the performance on episode
so
X.
That's what we get to it. So this is our resident scientist. You might want to do a close up of the face here. We want to go, hello. She's a little tired at the moment. It's been a big day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Elena.
you. Thank you, Elena.
We didn't even go in the toilet.
There's even inside the toilet, you can see some installations.
It's actually quite beautiful. I don't know if it shows up very
Wow.
well.
Wow.
So we have some live shrimp living in uranium glass because we wondered if this would be more stimulating.
Live shrimp inside.
Yeah. So we
Turning
actually
to blue.
performed an operation on one of them, which is a shrimp farming technique where you take off one of their eyeballs, which is like a horror film.
Yeah, museum.
But actually, in shrimp farming, ooh, be careful. In shrimp farming, this stimulates breathing. So we're conducting an experiment within uranium glass in here in the toilet. because it's a wet space, as the sun does. So this is our scientific research that we are accumulating on the wall, and people are contributing to this. Anyway. And more to be continued.
Not at all a shrimple work.
Continuing. Bye. And then we go upstairs.
By the lift.
Yes.
Nice afterglow theme in the lift.
Yeah. Here inside the elevator, again, we can see the glowing wall.
Wow, it works.
Here's the third floor. And this is Aluai Flidan's sculpture made of cloth and thread.
Monica? Sorry, yeah?
No. Aluai is based in Taiwan, and she pulls from a different history and cosmology than Chinese Taiwan. And so she works with people in her village and other communities to make these sculptures. For us, it's sort of beyond the kind of, when you come to this floor, really, it is three cosmologies that you will experience. You walk into first this sculptural, re-embodied idea of presence. When you go left, you will see the work of Anton Vidoclet, who is thinking on Russian cosmism. And when you go right, you will walk into the sort of interspecies erotic encounters that Zhang Bo is ruminating on, kind of queering the pitch between human and fauna. Three different ways
Flora.
of imagining, sorry, flora, not fauna. It's been a long day for everyone. Yeah, so these are the three. So this is kind of, as you go higher and higher in this building, you sort of come closest. This is the culmination of this building of Plot 48. And these are the three cosmologies on top.
There's also a collective we here. And all this, there's a kind of the artist and the we becomes very, very broad. So what the artist is channelizing is a very large we. In Alia's case, it's earth, mother, the kind of everything is a different kind of. In this Zhengbo's, it is other histories of insects, other histories of eroticism, other ways of inhabiting plants. And
so the one of the series of videos on the other projection you will see is the interspecies sex that we are comfortable with, which is between, say, bees and flowers. And then this is the other interspecies encounter. So they're both encounters of different kinds. One that we know and one that we perhaps could discover.
I mean, I think it's also interesting that he pushes an idea that we take for granted but never think about, which is like when you're presenting flowers to someone, flowers are the sex organs of plants. So, you know, we're always gifting each other the sex of plants, but no one really thinks about it. So I think this work really pushes that edge.
And here's also a small piece of print, which is replica from the British Library. Yeah, of the size.
Yeah. Octopus.
For those of us who know our last curation, which we had done at the MACBA in the open or in stealth, this has actually been a source for us in that exhibition. This wonderful encounter between an octopus and a human.
And it's called The Fisherman's Wife, something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the opposite side, there's Anton Vidoclet.
It's a diptych, actually. One film comes on and then the other one comes on after that. So they flip sides. one is thinking on immortality and or what is
now it's
this
the in between
too late now.
period. Too late now.
Well, I mean, just to make it complicated, if we did have the immortality that Anton wants us all to have, then people might want to stop reproducing, because and then I think there's a nice tension between the shrimp experiments, which are trying to make shrimp reproduce, and Anton Vidochel's cosmism, which would actually be the logical end of reproduction. There would no longer be a necessity for it. So these are different ways of thinking about life and life processes that animate this space as well.
But is Anton's video not running?
It's not
No,
running.
it's between. Yeah.
Sorry,
Because there are
in
two
between.
videos. Can we go inside the room and see it? It's
No, we just came out.
It's
okay.
already
Yeah,
because there are
switched
two
off now
videos.
for the
There are
night.
two videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One comes on and the other one, so that you have to move between the screens. You have to turn around. So now we're going to go into the rest of the complex of plot 48. This is one building, and then there is a courtyard space, and then there is the extension building.
तो बाकी वीडियो भी बंद होगा क्या?
Maybe. I think it's quite late.
यहाँ पे तो सारे वीडियो है.
Yeah, maybe
this
something
is information and ticket booth, a lounge, and there's a shop.
And then you have at this diagonal the work of Joyce Ho, the piece by Joyce Ho, which you can either walk through or you can activate differently by, and so each of these things barricades, as it were, and yet, you know, you can transform its existential condition, make it, if they don't fall. So it's an open piece for participation by anyone.
Also, the question of the barriers are always like this. Actually, to push them, they will start wobbling. So they may stand very strong, but they actually are wobbly.
And here, another Risa Sato's work.
Oh,
up on the
orange
terrace.
in
Yeah, orange one. Yes. And here we again see something strange on the floor. There's a bag inside this empty space, but we cannot enter. It's locked. But here we enter another space, and again we found the bag. Someone left the bag on the floor. And we see the wall here. And I have to ask my colleagues to find their way how we can go. We again find some empty space, and people might got lost in some way. So they have to find their way to go out from this space. And this is part of Ikawa Takehiro's work.
Let's find the way.
Yeah. She's Mariko, my colleague, but this is her first time to come here. So she really doesn't know the way.
This can be somebody's nightmare. or dream.
Finally, the wall moves. And there's the way.
It's a
But
great line.
again,
Finally,
we're
the wall
trapped.
moves.
And there's the way.
押し戻してください。
But in Japan, it should be simple to think of moving walls, no?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we
This
have
work
that
could
many
only have
sliding
emerged.
walls. And there's another way.
So this is also a work that makes us see a building in a different way, you know.
Yes.
It takes the
And there's
structure of the
many
building
similar
opens up.
doors.
Yeah.
So actually, I think people need, I think right now it's 15 minutes per visitor. There was apparently a long queue because it does take time.
Yes. Yeah. It took more than hours today.
More than an hour?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Our waiting time. Yes.
Our waiting. Yeah. There was a long queue in front of his door. Here we came into this empty room where I looked into.
You had started from here. So actually, we've just come back, but otherwise we can go the other way.
Yes. じゃあ、さらに次へ。
I think what this work does really interestingly is to play with the experiences of relief, of anxiety and relief, which we often face in all sorts of public spaces where we don't know the way in and out. And these bags are a real kind of punctuation because you don't know, given the fact of the abandoned object of their making.
Yeah, and we have to go back.
Oh.
People won't be able to do this on their own, right? They will need.
No, they are.
Yeah. They have to. Those will follow, but no guide.
No, like I mean, the weight of a it's taking two people.
Yeah, it's not. No,
Can a single person do this? Possible. I think it's really incredible how the space changes if you're looking at people.
Yeah.
She's completely lost. Now you see why the bag, you know, the bag stops.
Yes. Again, there's a heavy bag. Now we are totally trapped.
Look, heavy big. Huh?
And it's also good to see that at the different side of this space, the yellow wall comes out when the people push it. And also there is a very heavy bag stopping the wall. Hi, okay. And now we are in a different room. What it is. So this is the last room for 48. There are many other pieces combined in this huge space. This is the last minutes of Tina Habrock Stevens' work.
The drumming piece.
Yes.
This is a piece in which this it's almost an act of meditation, which it drums. It's endurance drumming with abandoned airplanes. It has a very strange, strong resonance, which you can only experience when you see it or hear it. Feels like the end of time as well as the beginning of some time.
I think this is the very end of the time.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
the
very
piece
dark.
itself feels like the end of time or the beginning of time.
And at the back of the room, there's crockery ornament jars. Beautiful installation. And at the back side of his room, there is a mural with the dried and pressed flowers.
That's his grandmother.
Yes. And the candles on the floor. And outside, there's Ras Rikta's live performance, online live performance piece and the installation. The title is Planet Blue.
Planet Blue, yes. So he's transmitting the piece. He will be performing live almost every day, but it's basically there's an online platform. What is it called? The Blue Room? I'm blanking on the exact. Blued, that's right.
The app is blued.
The app is called Blued, which is a space for not only but for queer watching, where he performs actually in any case every day, and he's sort of extended that performance into the space of the museum over here, well, of Block 48 over here.
Space, this whole area is a kind of a liminal state of visibility, invisibility, of passing away. Those kind of that liminality or threshold zones of respooling life, thinking life, steps in, steps out, prohibition, transgression. Those lines are what draws this space.
So, I mean, as you can in Korakut space, he really is thinking on growing old and his grandparents and death. And here, Russ is thinking on what does it mean to sort of perform in where the gaze expects something and the body provides something else, and sometimes those two come through. Sort of to me, it's like, no, there's no obvious connection. It is simply sort of thinking on the question of the body and its limits and its potential and its transgressions and its exhaustions.
And next to Ras Rictus,
you have to stand back.
Yeah.
On the Trois Soleils. This is a piece by Hai Ivisian, in which he's thinking on the limits of, well, not limits really, of how illumination controls. So these lamps, so he has worked with lamps like this before, where the ones that are used in stadium lighting are used on street so that people's movements can be tracked. And here also we are using lamps. He's using lamps which are actually have been used in the last Tokyo Olympics. These are all marks made by chalk balls.
And this whole idea that here, in Rus, you saw it's a self-declared hypervisibility and understanding guess. Here you are ticketed into an hypervisibility. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of, when you ticket yourself into a sports arena or anywhere, you kind of go into a kind of state of exception. You buy.
And now Tina's image is more clear.
Eriko, can you give a long shot of the of Haig's work? A long shot.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, the full shot. Yeah. Yeah, this intensive surveilled, that you ticket yourself into extensive surveillance, and you're kind of a state of exception that you enter into a kind of extra juridical space where the visibility can take you at the edge. So this between Ras and this, there is this tension between the whole way in which we live visibility in the present. Visibility, where visibility's way of playing visibility and consenting visibility is something that we're continuously negotiating, and it's the terms of our technologies itself.
And here the question of light and illumination turns quite sharply. It's not the glow, but glare, maybe.
Yes. And here, another piece by Oscar Saint-Leon.
Yeah, and
with 3 projections and with chewing gum.
And this is a very unique chewing gum.
Yeah, it's very unique.
It's a very unique chewing gum. It's a historic
cosmic historic chewing gum.
So one thing very important that Oscar manages and does, which is important in this 1 hour, why we think that Oscar can provide this in this exhibition, is that he's able to take a minor history and make it almost reeling unheard of spaces together. So here Neil Armstrong's chewing gum is part of a genetic material for production of a future subjectivity or a species, because it has got mixed with a cave in Ecuador, where,
Yeah. In South America, in Ecuador, yeah.
yeah, the cave, and it has been picked up by one of the person who's a guide with Neil Armstrong there. So, and this is a capsule, a bit like space capsule form. So what he's able to do is futures and past, and that cave has a long history, archaeologies of speculation around alien life. So this multiple speculation in various indigenous life about alien life with Neil Armstrong and the space capsule produces amalgamation of all this entangled history together.
I mean, if you think of saliva as a beginning of the digestive process, then this is the saliva that went to the moon, that began digesting a chewing gum, that then returned to Yokohama. No, well, came to Yokohama.
As
And
growing
here,
in Yokohama.
Yeah. And here is Rahima Gambo's Tatsunia, the series of photography and the video around the school, schools girls, again back at their school life after
being
the Boko
released
Haram.
from captivity. Yeah.
Macmillan Primary Science Book 3.
And here's her video. The visitor have to peep in between these trees, palm trees.
What can you see in the mirror?
Rahima is working very beautifully with the idea of school exercises, which are both, you can see as text above the photographs, and also what the young women, young girls are saying, spoken voice. Various sets of exercises that are set in school, but it is this complete sort of banality that is what makes them joyous, especially when I think the question of how one lives after an event, what does one do in the time after, how does one make that experience into something that you can live with and not just
no, that after you have to explain, Monica. This is the site, huh? This is
yeah, the site is where in the school the Boko Haram had attacked, and it had been a very violent incident. So that's the incident, the time after that incident. But I think a lot of us live with the after time of trauma in different gradations.
And the last is Naeem Hayman's video in projection. But now the projection is ended.
right.
It's in the intermission period.
I think it might have ended for the day.
Yeah.
But this is this piece by Naeem is a commission by the Triennale, in which we invited Naeem to think. Chibish, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, see, Naeem, something that Naeem has talked before, and something that we knew from Naeem, that there was a certain sense where he was thinking about the care and the problem of kind of life in which you are in between hospital and home, between different countries, this between multiple steps by which you have to weave between cultures, between illness and life. And also somewhere you're also caring for something that you may not able to care back to life, but the life itself is in the living duration of that act.
And so he pays attention to the carers, which is also an interesting thing.
I mean, it's important, isn't it?
So it's a fiction film, but it's a fiction film. It's
set in a hospital.
Set in an abandoned hospital. It's a fiction film between two figures, but they conjure many figures. They conjure figures between cultures, between cities, between time, and creates a kind of a crowd as they share an intimacy, hesitancy, and they drift away.
We're hoping that we'll be able to project, not project, I mean to put some of these works, at least for a short time, on the website of Yokohama Triennale.
For short viewing time.
Yes,
so that many more people can watch some of these amazing works that have been just finished like recently, made for the exhibition.
Yeah. And shall we go to the farming architects?
Yes, now we're leaving the building. Now we're leaving. This is the sort of end of the exhibition. Now we're exiting, and the way you exit is not the way you come. You turn right over here.
Here is a nice path at the back side of the building with the cherry blossom trees. So in the springtime, it was full of cherry blossoms. And also here, there's another flowers bloom, also used in the crockeries installation as pressed flowers.
That's nice.
Yeah, perhaps one thing we could talk a little bit about, Eric, you could talk about it, is that actually the build-up of the installation happened exactly like this, the way we are seeing it now. Maybe that's something you would want to tell us about, how that experience was for all of you.
Yeah, it was a very exciting moment that almost no artists here on site. And we have to think of the feeling or idea, how the artists are thinking, and we have to become part of their hands, part of their foot, part of their eyes. And so also this one, the farming architects, they
And
came
also
here before COVID. Yeah. But they just made up the very primal design. And after that, we have to work remotely with the Japanese architect. And now finally, the work is here.
This is again in the threshold space of the building. Anyone is welcome to sit and rest over here.
Enjoy the fish and the plants.
The plants are also hydroponics.
Yeah, this plant.
And on this note, you can then go home.
Yes.
Yuko, are you having a party? Is there a party? Some drinks? Some.
Oh, wow.
Well, you all definitely. Oh, yeah. This is where actually where books and magazines will come for people to sit and read if they like.
In daytime, the books will be here on the shelves, and people can sit down. And it's nice wind is now coming. It's very nice moment. And after good rest, people go back to their normal life from the exit.
Back into Yokohama.
Yes.
It's a beautiful evening. Thank you, Eriko San, so much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Monica, Jivish, Yuta.
Thank you, Eriko. Go and have a good rest.
Thank you.
And have a big highball.
Oh, yes. I definitely need it now. And I hope you can all come here probably later than next month in September or
Yes,
October.
we all hope.
Let's hope so.
At least see it
Yeah.
once before it ends.
Hope,
Okay.
hope for COVID goes out from the earth.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, thank you. Good
Good night,
night.
everyone. Thank you, everyone. Good night, Eriko. Oh, this
Bye.
plant, this shot is very nice of Yokohama.
Yeah.